I've spent 30 years tracking things across the frozen Arctic. Most of these places are just graves for pride. But last month, we pushed deep into the permafrost zone. We were hunting for a supply cache from 1820. Instead, we found a cabin buried under a dune of ice.
The wood was petrified, like it had been sealed in a tomb.
When I pried the door open, the air smelled like copper and ozone.
It was like a lightning strike trapped in a bottle.
My partner, Elias, had been acting strange for weeks. My headlamp cut through the darkness. The cabin was empty, with no gear or bunks.
The floor was covered in strange circular carvings.
In the center of the room, there was a block of ice. Inside, a man was suspended in absolute terror. He was wearing a modern parka, just like mine. My blood turned to slush in my veins.
Elias stood inches from the block, reaching out. I told him to back away, but he didn't hear me. He was staring at a brass journal in the man's hands. The edges were glowing with a strange, impossible light.
Elias whispered that he knew him, that it was his brother. I knew his brother was dead, but this was a perfect copy.
The man's eyes were open, watching us with a malevolent intelligence.
I realized the cabin wasn't a shelter. It was a trap. Elias fumbled with his climbing pick, desperate to break the ice. I grabbed his shoulder to pull him away. He turned on me with the ferocity of a predator. His face was changing, turning waxy and pale. He threw me against the wall with impossible strength. I collapsed, and the world turned into gray static. When I finally came to, the cabin was dead silent. All I could hear was a wet, rhythmic thumping against the floorboards. I scrambled up, sweeping my light around, and my heart just about stopped. The man in the ice was gone too. Just the journal was left, sitting open on the plinth and glowing. I didn't dare touch it, especially when I saw the wet, dragging marks leading to a hole in the floor. I didn't wait around for him to come back. I didn't even grab my gear. I just ran until my lungs were burning, and the frost in my beard felt like needles. I navigated by the stars, trying to ignore that weird, rhythmic chanting coming from the snow. It sounded like people trying to remember words they'd forgotten a long time ago. 2 days later, I finally made it to the extraction point, but I was completely broken. When the pilot asked about Elias, I just told him the storm took him. It was a lie, but it was the only thing I could say that didn't sound crazy. Everyone back at the station thinks I'm just losing it from the isolation. I kept it all to myself for a month. But tonight, I found something hidden in the lining of my pack. It was a page from that journal, and the ink was still wet and glowing. The sketches on the page were clear as day. They showed the cabin, the plinth, and a figure standing there that looked just like me. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a trap. It was a cycle. I spent 30 years tracking things out here, never realizing I was the one being tracked. I was marked for that place before I was even born. Every night now, I hear someone scratching at the underside of my floorboards. I barricaded my windows and kept the lamp burning, but the darkness is patient. It knows this land better than I ever will. The rules out here are simple. Nothing that goes into the deep wilderness ever comes back the same. If you're planning a trip, don't go looking for the old markers. Don't go seeking the silence of the deep north. There are places where the ice is thin, and the barrier between our world and the Earth's hunger is wearing away. The woods are calling,
but you shouldn't answer. I've spent 30 years tracking men and beasts across the frozen spine of the Arctic. But I've never seen a man look at a corpse with the kind of hunger Elias showed when we cracked that cabin door. It's a memory that keeps me awake. A haunting reminder of the day everything changed. I remember the way the wind sounded that day, like a choir of the damned screaming across the permafrost.
We were miles from any mapped village, searching for a supply cache that had been lost for 2 centuries.
The silence out there isn't empty. It's waiting. When we finally found the cabin, it was buried under a dune of ice that looked like it had been there forever. The wood was dark and petrified, sealed like a tomb. It didn't look like a shelter. It looked like a warning. The air that rushed out when I pried the door open didn't smell like rot or dust. It smelled like copper and ozone, like a lightning strike trapped in a bottle for 200 years. I should have turned back then. But curiosity is a dangerous thing in the north. Elias had been acting strange for weeks, his eyes constantly darting toward the horizon. He kept claiming he saw light patterns on his scanner that didn't match any known wildlife. I thought he was just tired, but he was seeing something else entirely. Inside the cabin, there were no bunks or gear. The floor was covered in complex circular carvings, deep gouges that looked like they were made by something with too many joints in its fingers. It felt like we had stepped into a place that wasn't meant for human eyes. In the center of the room, on a heavy stone plinth, was a block of ice. Inside it, suspended in a pose of absolute agonizing terror, was a man. He wasn't wearing old-fashioned gear. He was wearing a modern parka, the same kind I'd bought just last year. Elias didn't move. He stood inches from the block, his breathing ragged, his hand reaching out to touch the frozen surface. He was staring at the man's face, or rather, at the object the man was clutching against his own heart. It was a brass journal, the leather binding still pristine, the edges glowing with a faint bioluminescent shimmer that shouldn't have existed. Elias whispered that he knew him, that this was his brother who had vanished on a solo trek 3 years ago.
I knew for a fact his brother had died in a car accident in the city, but looking at the man in the ice, I saw the impossible resemblance.
It was a mirror image, a perfect copy, yet the eyes of the man inside were open, watching us with a sentient, malevolent intelligence. I realized the cabin wasn't a shelter. It was a trap, a mechanism designed to harvest us.
Elias started fumbling with his climbing pick, desperate to break the ice.
I grabbed his shoulder to drag him out, but he turned on me with the ferocity of a predator. His face was changing, turning waxy and pale. He threw me against the wall like I weighed nothing. My head hit a beam, and everything went dark. I was dazed, struggling to catch my breath. When I finally came to, the cabin was dead silent. I heard a rhythmic, wet thumping on the floorboards. I stood up, but Elias was gone. The ice block was shattered, scattered like diamonds. The man inside was gone. Only the brass journal remained, lying open on the plinth. I saw wet, dragging marks leading to the back of the cabin. There was a hole in the floor that wasn't there before. It led down into the dark, frozen earth. I ran until my lungs burned. The frost in my beard turned to jagged needles. I navigated by the stars, ignoring the chanting from the snow. I reached the extraction point 2 days later.
I was frostbitten, broken, and alone.
I told the pilot the storm took Elias.
They think I'm just suffering from sensory deprivation.
They think the isolation played tricks on my mind. But they haven't seen what I saw in that cabin. I kept the secret for a month. Tonight, I found something in my own gear. It was a page from that journal, glowing with an impossible light.
I stared at the page, my hands trembling as the ink pulsed.
The sketches were impossible, showing the cabin in terrifying detail.
A figure stood over the stone, and I realized the face was my own.
The realization hit me like a physical blow. The cabin wasn't just a trap. It was a cycle. It wasn't waiting for people to find it. It was waiting for us to return. I've spent 30 years tracking things that hunt in the Arctic. But I never realized that I was the one being tracked.
I was marked for a place in the ice, prepared before I was born.
Every night since, I hear it.
Not the wind, not the wolves, but the sound of someone scratching.
It's a slow, methodical rhythm that mirrors the sound I heard in that cabin. I've barricaded my windows and kept my lamp burning.
But the darkness is patient.
It knows the ancient rules of this land, that nothing returns the same.
If you're planning a trip, don't look for the markers of the old expeditions.
Do not seek the silence of the deep north. There are places in the Arctic where the ice is thin,
where the barrier between our world and the hunger of the earth is wearing away. The woods are calling, but you shouldn't answer.
The hunger is ancient, and it's waiting for someone new. I've spent 30 years tracking men and beasts across the frozen spine of the Arctic. But I've never seen a man look at a corpse with the kind of hunger Elias showed.
The memory still haunts me every time I close my eyes.
The cabin door creaks open in my mind. I see him again, standing there, his eyes reflecting a void. I'm still there, trapped in that moment, forever waiting for the ice to break. The Arctic is not just a place. It is a predator. And I'm finally beginning to understand that I was never the hunter.
I was the bait, and the trap is finally closing.
I stare at the wall, watching the shadows stretch and warp. The scratching beneath the floorboards has become rhythmic, like a heartbeat. I know whatever is down there is just waiting for me to stop fighting.
My hands are shaking as I reach for the survival pack again.
I pull out the torn page, sniffle, the cyan glow illuminating my tired face. It feels like the paper is burning a hole through my skin. The ink on the page seems to move, shifting into new, impossible shapes. I see the cabin again, but this time, the figure standing over the plinth is clearly me. The realization is a cold weight in my chest. I look around my room, seeing the barricades I built with such desperation. They look flimsy now, like paper walls against a storm. The darkness outside isn't just weather, it's a living thing. I remember the cabin, the way the air smelled like ozone and copper. It wasn't a shelter, it was a machine. It was waiting for me to come back, just like it waited for the others. I realize now that I was never the hunter.
I was the bait, and the trap is finally closing.
The Arctic doesn't just take lives. It recycles them.
The scratching gets louder, more deliberate. It's not coming from outside anymore. It's coming from right beneath my feet.
The floorboards are starting to vibrate with the sound.
I grab my gear, my hands moving on their own.
I don't know where I'm going, but I know I can't stay here. The cabin is calling, and I'm finally ready to answer. I step out into the white silence, the wind howling like a choir of the damned. The path ahead is invisible, but I know exactly where to go.
The ice is waiting for me.
I have spent 30 years tracking men and beasts across the frozen spine of the Arctic. I have never seen a man look at a corpse with the kind of hunger Elias showed. Now, I understand that hunger. The wind is a physical weight against my chest. Every step feels like I'm being pulled toward a magnetic north. I can feel the cabin calling out to me.
I reach the ridge where the cabin sits.
The petrified wood of the walls is dark against the white tundra. It looks exactly as it did the first time.
My hand trembles as I reach for the door handle.
The metal is freezing, biting into my skin. I know that once I open this door, there is no turning back. The door creaks open, revealing the tomb-like interior. The air is thick with the smell of copper and ozone.
My headlamp beam cuts through the darkness.
I step inside, my boots crunching on the scattered ice.
The silence here is heavy, pressing against my eardrums.
I look toward the stone plinth, but it stands empty.
There, resting on the plinth, is the brass journal.
It's open. The page is glowing with that same sickly light. I can feel the ink shifting, calling to me.
I reach out, my fingers hovering just inches from the pages.
The air around the journal feels cold, like a vacuum.
I know that if I touch it, I am sealing my fate. My fingers make contact with the leather, and the world tilts. The cabin walls seem to stretch and warp.
I hear a sound, a rhythmic scratching coming from beneath.
The hole in the floor begins to widen.
Something is pushing up from the dark, frozen earth. I can see a hand, fingers with too many joints, gripping the wood. I realize now that I am not the one who escaped. The cycle is complete, and the Arctic has claimed its due. I close my eyes, and the door locks from the outside.
The darkness here feels heavy, like it's actually pushing against me. I try to pull my hand back, but the journal's glow is pulsing right along with my heart. The air is getting freezing, and that ozone smell is just burning my lungs.
I finally force myself to look away from the book.
The shadows are moving, forming a shape that just shouldn't be here. It's not just a hand anymore. A whole shoulder is pulling itself up from the ground. I scramble back, my boots sliding on the ice. My light hits the walls, and those carvings look like they're actually vibrating.
That scratching sound is gone, replaced by a wet, rhythmic thumping.
The thing stands up, and it's wearing my own gear.
Its face is just a smooth, waxy mask with no features at all.
It doesn't even breathe, but I can hear it clicking like dry bones. I turn and bolt for the door, my heart going crazy. The cabin feels like it's stretching, and the door just keeps getting further away. The air is so thick, it's like I'm trying to run through jelly. I slam into the door, and it finally opens. The wind hits me hard, but it's better than that tomb. I don't look back. I just start running. The tundra is just endless white, but I'm following the stars. Behind me, that chanting is getting louder, vibrating right in my bones. I push myself harder, even though my lungs are on fire. I finally reached the extraction point 2 days later. I'm frostbitten and completely broken. When the pilot asks about Elias, I lie and say the storm took him. Back at the station, I feel like I'm in a cage. I find something in my pack that makes my blood run cold. It's a page from that journal, and the ink is still glowing. The sketches show the cabin and a figure that looks exactly like me. It hits me then. The truth is just too much. The cabin wasn't just a trap. It's a cycle, and it's waiting for me to come back. I'm staring at this page, and the ink is actually moving. It's like it's alive, crawling across the paper. The room feels freezing, even with the heater running. Every single night I hear it. It's this slow, methodical scratching right under my floorboards. It's the exact same rhythm I heard in that cabin. I've boarded up the windows and kept the lamp on. But it doesn't really matter, does it? The darkness is patient, and it knows this land better than I do.
The rules of this place are pretty simple.
Nothing that goes into the deep wilderness comes back the same. I can feel that change happening to me right now. If you're planning a trip, don't go looking for those old markers. Stay away from the silence of the deep north.
It's just a trap for anyone who's too curious.
There are spots where the ice is getting really thin. The barrier between our world and the Earth's hunger is wearing away. I've seen it with my own eyes. The woods are calling, but you really shouldn't answer. I've spent 30 years tracking men and beasts out here. But I never realized I was the one being tracked the whole time. I still remember the look on Elias's face when we opened that door. It wasn't fear, you know. It was this hunger that I still see in my nightmares. That cabin is just waiting for me. It's been waiting for me since before I was even born. I can feel it pulling me back into the white silence. I'm going back. I have to know if he's still there, waiting for me. The cycle has to be completed. I step out into the blinding white of the tundra. The wind bites at my face like 1,000 needles. Every step feels heavy, like the ground is pulling me down. The ridge looms ahead, a jagged scar against the sky. I recognize the path, even though it's been weeks. The silence here is like a held breath, waiting for me. I reach the spot where the cabin should be. The ice dunes have shifted, revealing dark wood. It's like the cabin is playing a game with me. I clear the snow away with my gloved hands. The wood is cold, unnaturally so, and it vibrates. I can feel the hunger trapped here for centuries. The door is still there, but the frame is scarred. I reach for the handle, my hand trembling. I know what's inside, but I can't turn back now. The door creaks open, and the smell of ozone hits me. The interior is dark, but my headlamp cuts through the gloom. Everything is exactly as it was, waiting for me. I walk to the center of the room, to the stone plinth.
The ice is gone, but the brass journal is there.
It glows with an impossible light, pulsing like a heartbeat.
I reach out to touch the page, and the ink shifts.
It's a map of my own life, leading back to this moment.
The realization is a cold weight in my gut. The floorboards groaned, the same rhythmic thumping I heard.
I look down, and the carvings are glowing.
I am not just a visitor here. I am part of the mechanism.
I close my eyes, and for a second, the cold is gone.
I am back in the white silence, but I am not tracking.
I am being tracked, and the hunter is finally home. The walls are pulsing with a light that matches my own heart.
I try to pull away, but the journal is stuck to my skin.
The air is getting thick, and the carvings on the floor are moving.
There's a sound coming from under the floorboards.
It sounds like 1,000 voices whispering in the dark.
The shadows in the corner are starting to move on their own. I've got to get out of here.
My light is flickering, and the shadows are everywhere.
My legs feel like lead, like I'm walking through deep water.
The door won't budge. I'm clawing at the wood, but my hands are just too numb.
The scratching behind me is getting louder and faster.
I turn around, and the plinth is glowing bright blue.
The journal is hovering in the air, flipping its pages.
The floor carvings are all lit up, like some kind of trap.
This place isn't a shelter.
It's a trap that feeds on our memories.
I'm just another story for this cabin to collect.
I've got to fight my way out. I'm swinging my pick at the wall.
The metal hits the wood with a loud crack. The wall is bleeding. It smells like something that's been dead for centuries.
The whole cabin is shaking like a sinking ship. I'm trying to find a way to hold on. The floor is spinning like a vortex.
I can feel it pulling at my soul, trying to drag me down.
I grab the journal.
Everything just went quiet.
I'm standing here in the dark, holding the only thing that matters. The silence in here is heavy, like it's trying to crush the breath right out of me.
This journal in my hands, it's pulsing with that same sickly light.
The shadows in the corners are starting to move on their own. I look down, and the carvings on the floor are actually shifting.
They're forming a map of the stars, the same ones I use to navigate.
The wood under my boots feels soft, like it's trying to pull me down into the earth.
I try to run for the door, but the room just keeps getting bigger.
My headlamp can't even cut through this darkness anymore.
It feels like I'm running in place, trapped in the middle of a nightmare.
Then I hear it, the click of the door latch opening up.
I spin around, and the door is wide open, but there's no snow out there.
It's just a swirling mess of gray static, and the air blowing in is hot and metallic.
I don't even think about it. I just throw myself through the door. It feels like something is clawing at me. Then I'm just out on the ice.
I look back, and the cabin is gone. It's just empty white ice everywhere.
I get to my feet and realize I'm still holding the journal.
It's not glowing anymore, but it feels warm in my hand. I start walking, just hoping I can find my way back to the extraction point.
The wind starts howling, but it sounds like that chanting again. I keep telling myself it's just the ice, just the pressure. But it's getting louder, and I swear I can hear them whispering my name.
I stop and open the journal. My hands are shaking so bad. The pages are full of drawings of the cabin and that plinth.
And there's a figure in the sketches, and it looks exactly like me.
That's when it hits me, like a punch to the gut. The cabin wasn't just for Elias. It's a cycle.
I'm not the one tracking anymore. I'm the one being hunted.
I close the journal and look out at the horizon.
The sky is turning purple, and the wind is finally dying down. I know I can't run anymore, so I just start walking toward the ridge.
I'm trudging through the deep, powdery snow.
The horizon is just a blur of white and purple.
That journal in my pack feels like a heavy, cold weight.
The wind is howling, but I hear that scratching again. It's a slow, methodical sound, vibrating through the ice. I'm holding my breath, trying to find where it's coming from.
I've finally reached the ridge where the ice is thin.
The ground is broken by these weird glowing fissures. I know I shouldn't be here, but I can't stop my feet from moving. I pull the journal out and the pages just flip open.
The ink is still wet and glowing with that weird light.
The sketch shows me standing right here, like it's a blueprint.
The wind just dies and everything goes completely silent.
I look up and see the cabin rising out of the ice. It's waiting for me, just like it waited for Elias. I start walking toward it, even though my mind is screaming to turn back.
The hunger of the earth is calling to me, matching my own heartbeat. I'm not a tracker anymore, just another piece of the cycle.
I reach the door, and it's cold and slick with frost.
The door swings open on its own, revealing the dark interior. That smell of ozone and copper hits me like a welcome home.
I step inside, and the door slams shut behind me. My headlamp flickers and dies, leaving me in total darkness.
I'm not alone. I can feel something ancient waiting for me.
The floorboards start shifting, and the carvings are glowing again. I look down and see the stone plinth, empty and waiting. It's not just a trap. It's a mirror, and I'm finally seeing the truth.
I lay the journal on the plinth, and the light bleeds into the stone.
The cold is creeping up my legs, turning my blood to slush. The cycle is complete, and I'm finally part of the silence. The light from the journal starts to bleed into the stone. My hands are freezing up, and I can't seem to let go. The floor is moving beneath my feet. It's like the whole cabin is waking up. The walls are frosting over, and I can hear voices. It sounds like a choir, but it's not human. The frost is forming pictures on the walls, showing my whole life, right here. I can't even scream anymore. The cold is reaching my heart, and it's so heavy. The plinth is cracking, and something is forming. It's waiting for me, isn't it? My skin is changing, turning into something else. I'm losing my memories, and the cold is taking over. The door is open, and I can see the snow. I want to run, but I can't move at all. The light is fading, and everything is going dark. I'm part of the ice now, waiting for the next one. The silence is back, and it's so heavy. The cabin is waiting for the next person to come along. The cabin stands silent, a tomb of petrified wood holding its newest acquisition.
Outside, the Arctic wind howls, oblivious to the transformation occurring within the frozen walls. The cycle of the cabin has reset, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to stumble upon its threshold.
Years pass in the blink of an eye within the permafrost.
The ice shifts, slowly burying the cabin deeper beneath the shifting dunes of the tundra. It waits patiently, a dormant predator hidden from the maps of men. Back at the regional survey station, the maps are updated, but the coordinates for the northern sector remain blank. The researchers talk of anomalies and magnetic interference, never suspecting the truth.
They are looking for data, while the land is looking for prey. I sit in my own room, the walls feeling thinner every day.
The scratching beneath the floorboards has become a constant rhythmic companion. I know what it wants, and I know that no amount of barricading will keep it out forever.
I look at the page from the journal again, the ink glowing with that sickly, impossible light. It's a map, not of the land, but of the cabin itself.
It shows the path I took, and the path I am destined to take again.
The wind outside changes pitch, shifting from a howl to a low, rhythmic chanting. It's the same sound I heard in the cabin, the sound of voices long forgotten. They are calling to me, reminding me that the Arctic never lets go of its own. I pack my gear, not because I want to leave, but because I know I have to return.
The cabin is waiting, and the cycle demands its due. I am the tracker, and I am finally tracking the only thing that matters.
I step out into the white silence, the cold biting through my parka like 1,000 needles.
The path ahead is clear, marked by the same strange rhythmic chanting that guides me back to the tomb.
I am walking into the heart of the Arctic, and I am not coming back.
The cabin appears on the horizon, a dark, petrified scar on the face of the ice. It looks exactly as I remember it. A tomb waiting for its occupant. I reach for the door, my hand trembling, knowing that this is the end of the line.
I open the door, and the scent of ozone and copper rushes out to meet me.
The cycle is complete, and the Arctic claims its own.
I step inside, and the silence of the deep north finally swallows me whole.